Tonight, on 60 Minutes, we take you inside the KGB, perhaps the most infamous and notoriously brutal spying agency of the Cold War. This elusive group of Soviet agents infiltrated almost every major agency and organisation across the globe, from Britain to the USA, and were involved in countless espionage activities, from counterintelligence to assassination attempts to terrorism. We will never uncover the truth of an agency long shrouded in secrecy, revealing the chilling aims of an agency whose cold-hearted mien earned its reputation as one of the most effective yet deadly spying agencies in the world. Tonight, we speak to both a former KGB agent and a current Cold War espionage expert, Joe Weisberg, to reveal the true nature of an agency labelled as the world's most effective information-gathering organisation. And through focusing on one particular KGB-driven operation in the USA, expose the extent of their impact on the Cold War as a whole. As countries across the globe struggled to rebuild following its destruction at the hands of Nazi Germany in World War II, an entirely new challenge emerged for a world gripped by political and social instability. Two superpowers remained: the capitalist United States of America and the communist Soviet Union. Over the next 40 years, these two superpowers would be locked in an ideological, geopolitical and economic struggle that would divide the entire world in two: capitalism versus communism, West versus East, and at the heart of it all, engage in an intensely competitive nuclear arms race which would ensure global destruction at the push of a button. This ever-present fear of mutually assured destruction meant that these two superpowers never directly engaged with one another. Instead, this war was to be fought on a very different battlefield. As both sides fought for world supremacy, governments turned to espionage as their first line of defence. Almost every country possessed their own spying agents. The USA had the CIA, Britain the MI5, and the Soviet Union had the KGB. Perhaps the most brutal of them all, the KGB were the Soviet Union's frontline soldiers in their fight against the capitalist influence and the reinforcement of Soviet ideals. Throughout the Cold War, the KGB instilled a reign of terror that would extend far beyond the Berlin Wall, striking fear into the hearts of Soviet citizens and foreign leaders alike. Due to the activities involving the intelligence gathering of nuclear and economic secrets to the brutal reinforcement of communist ideals, the KGB was vital to the expansion and success of the Soviet Union throughout the Cold War. We're here to speak with a former KGB agent who, for security reasons, wishes to remain unnamed, in a bid to gain a never-before-seen insight into the agency that was the KGB. Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about your experiences in the KGB.
I was a typical product of the Soviet system, a generational patriot and spy, my uncle being an agent as well. Everything I knew about the world was from Soviet propaganda and my parents' teachings. For me, communism was king, and America was the enemy. I suppose I was a perfect fit for the job. I began the secret police in about 1950, bullying Soviet citizens into submission to the communist regime. Those who resisted, well, they were dealt with. It was very clinical and cold-hearted. Eventually I was promoted into a foreign unit, based in the USA. This is where I learned the true extent of the KGB's influence.
What do you mean?
Well, the KGB had a high-ranking man in every agency. Whatever the West were doing, the KGB would know about it.
Yes, it is true. Soviet spying agencies such as the KGB often had inside men in major organizations and governments across the world. Klaus Fuchs, in the 40s for example, was a German-American scientist who infamously supplied the Soviet Union with information from the Manhattan Project. This tactic was vital for obtaining vital secrets regarding defense systems and new weapon technology, as well as economic and political secrets. But this wasn't the limit of clandestine foreign activities conducted by the KGB. Often using foreign citizens, the KGB would plan and sometimes carry out sabotage acts against key positions in foreign territories in order to weaken the political and economic strength of Western nations.
Can you think of any such operations?
Well, I'm sure there's many more that I'm not aware of, but there's one that comes to mind. It is an operation in the 60s involving the planned sabotage of American infrastructure, KGB agents working out of a safe house in Pennsylvania.
The operation that Joe Weisberg is referring to involved a two-stage attack against the Flathead and Hungry Horse dams in Montana, two of the biggest hydroelectric dams in North America. KGB operatives planned to bring down power lines in the region, causing major blackouts across the entire Midwest and East Coast. These attacks would be accompanied by strikes against oil pipelines so that power could not be rerouted from Canada. And what would such an operation aim to achieve?
The purpose of this specific operation was to cause a huge blackout across the United States. As well as this, there were plans to directly attack New York City, the most visible symbol of capitalism, with a series of planned explosions against New York's piers and wharves. Ultimately, the KGB planned to escalate political tension in the United States, which they believed, as funny as it may seem now, would overthrow the federal government and help the Soviet Union in their struggle against the US.
I was never directly involved in this, but in my work in America, I certainly heard a lot about it, and I can tell you it wasn't the only case.
So, was this an operation typical of the KGB then?
Definitely. They were always willing to use fear and raise political tension to their advantage. In this way, they were a vital component of the Soviet defense and offense. They didn't care about the human costs, just the results. This is why they were so effective.
What do you think the true impact of the KGB was in the context of the Cold War?
I believe that the KGB was undoubtedly the most influential organization of the Cold War. Not only did they have a tangible, physical impact, but their mental impact was also extremely important. The only reason that the Soviet Union was able to remain such a force for so long, 40 or so years after World War II, was because of their intelligence ability. Through the KGB, they were able to both solidify the situation at home, albeit through fear and oppression, and also remain competitive with a largely dominant superpower such as the US, through the gathering of technological and political secrets and other clandestine activities.
They were mean, no doubt about it. No one would disagree with them because they would find you. They weren't afraid to retaliate or to initiate conflict. No one was safe. Think of Litvenkio 2006.
Are you scared?
I'm wary. I know what they're capable of, but that's the nature of spying. You're never free, you're never safe, and there's no more true than with the KGB.
In a period of increased tension and insecurity, the KGB thrived, preying on the fear of individuals and nations across the globe alike. A powerful and effective tool, they encapsulated the methods, ideologies and values of the Soviet Union. They were a trademark symbol of communism, cold-hearted, clinical and unfeeling. The KGB possessed the unique ability to reshape the world, politically, geographically and mentally, without being detected. Through enforcing Soviet ideals, to the intelligence gathering, to foreign sabotage operations, the KGB were one of, if not the most influential organizations of the Cold War.